There were only 2 generations of the Sharan, but they were produced for a whopping 27 years. The newer model recently made history, and it's time to see if it's as successful as its predecessor. The Volkswagen Sharan wasn't a pioneer in its segment, and the model was introduced 11 years after the premiere of the first Renault Espace, which many consider the first minivan in its current form, and it survived until its end in 2022, when the last classic minivans disappeared from the market and Sharan production also ended. The German minivan played a significant role in the development of the segment in Europe and was one of the most beloved models in its class. Moreover, many people still fondly remember the first Sharan, which was produced for a staggering 15 years. The second generation lasted 12 years, which is also an excellent result. Production of the second-generation Volkswagen Sharan began in 2010, and it underwent only one facelift, in 2015. The exterior was slightly altered at that time, and the interior to an even lesser extent, although the changes are so cosmetic that not everyone will notice. More significant changes were made to the technology and equipment throughout its production run. In 2011, parking assist and keyless entry were introduced. The following year, additional storage space was added to the roof console, a new radio and multimedia system, and four-wheel drive. Electric sliding door closing was added in 2013. As part of the facelift, the biggest changes took place under the hood to adapt the engines to the new Euro 6 standard. Therefore, the Sharan II does not have an engine that was offered both before and after the facelift. What kind of car is it, and who is it for? It's a car that fulfills all the functions of a classic minivan, with 3 rows of seats, independent seats that can be folded, moved, and adjusted, as well as convenient sliding doors and a huge trunk. The car measures 4.85 meters in length with a wheelbase of 2,920 millimeters. This makes it approximately 45 centimeters longer than the compact minivan known as the Touran. The Sharan's trunk capacity depends on the interior configuration, but the 3-row version offers 267 liters of usable space. With 2 rows of seats, there are 658 liters up to the parcel shelf or over 900 liters up to the roof. The manufacturer claims a capacity of 711 liters for the 5-seater version. Maximum space with all rear seats folded is 2,430 liters. Volkswagen offered 3 interior configurations for the Sharan. The classic version had 5 seats, and for an additional fee, 2 more could be ordered in the 3rd row. There was also a 6-seater version, with 2 seats in each row until 2016. The car is uncompromising in terms of ergonomics, a masterpiece in its class. It has a good, clearly better driving position than its predecessor, and, above all, it is comfortable to sit on each seat, and not only in the front as in the predecessor. The Sharan II isn't just the successor to the Sharan I, but also a more luxurious, very well-equipped car, a class above the rest in every respect. While its predecessor featured both affordable and more expensive versions, even the entry-level Sharan II is very well built and well-equipped. The top-of-the-line versions, on the other hand, can be considered close to premium. Unlike its predecessor, the interior configuration system has changed, with the seats no longer removable but folding into the floor. While this does take up some space when folded, I wouldn't call it a drawback just yet. It might take a few years for the Sharan II to become a utility vehicle like the pre-facelift Sharan I. Each second and third row seat has ISOFIX child seat mounts, and an integrated factory-installed child seat was an additional option. Unlike many similar solutions, an additional feature is a separately mounted headrest that allows for proper seatbelt routing. In summary, the Volkswagen Sharan II is an even more refined minivan than its predecessor, and above all, a near-perfect family car. Comfortable, safe, and driver-friendly, it's also superbly crafted and equipped. It handles beautifully thanks to the independent multi-link rear suspension, and the 4-wheel drive versions are excellent in winter conditions. Seat Alhambra. Sharan copy? Essentially, the differences between the Spanish Alhambra and the German Sharan are minor, aside from appearance. However, the Volkswagen was a slightly higher-end product, so the Alhambra, for example, had slightly lower equipment levels and was never offered with 6 seats. The Alhambra was cheaper, but Seat didn't offer such customization options, selling them as a package, while Volkswagen customers could choose individual options. Under the hood, both cars featured exactly the same engines and the same drivetrain configurations. Therefore, it can be assumed that the cars are technically identical, which is crucial when purchasing and then operating them, e.g., complete interchangeability of mechanical parts. Volkswagen Sharan. What engines were installed? The Sharan's engine lineup is quite limited, only 3 engines, but a total of 12 variants were offered. The basic power plant was the 1.4 TSI petrol, supplemented by the larger 2.0 TSI. The diesel engine was the 2.0 TDI, and of course, it was the most popular. Digging deeper, the 1.4 TSI designation encompasses the pre-facelift EA111 and post-facelift EA211 engines. In practice, these are 2 different engines and almost entirely different designs. The 2.0 TSI engine also differed before and after the facelift, but both are from the same EA888 family. The diesel engine is available in 4 pre-facelift and 4 post-facelift variants. And just like the small petrol engine, the pre-facelift engine was from a different family, the EA189, compared to the post-facelift engine, EA288. Additionally, it's worth mentioning that some engines were offered with a 6- or 7-speed DSG automatic transmission. The 7-speed transmission was intended for cars with 4-wheel drive, which was only available for diesel engines. A 6-speed manual was standard on many versions, and front-wheel drive was standard on all engine versions. Note, users complain about the DSG gearbox's gear ratios, high revs at highway speeds. The 4-wheel drive system, called 4Motion in Volkswagen or 4Drive in Seat, is a design with a multi-plate clutch that automatically engages the rear axle. Which engine to choose? The petrol engine lineup features 2 surefire contenders, both facelifted engines. The 1.4 TSI EA211 is a refined design with no major flaws. Despite its compact size, it offers good performance and fuel economy when driven economically. It's safest to pair it with a manual gearbox, but the DSG also handles well under light loads. The second good petrol engine is the newer and most powerful 2.0 TSI. It doesn't suffer from oil consumption issues like its predecessor, is durable, and delivers excellent performance. A Sharan equipped with this engine accelerates to 100 kilometers per hour in under 8 seconds. Interestingly, it consumes only slightly more fuel than the 1.4 TSI, around 10 to 11 liters per 100 kilometers. If a manual gearbox were available, DSG 6 is standard, it would be ideal. When it comes to diesels, there's a 550 to 50 rule. Newer units are more refined in terms of performance, consume slightly less fuel, though all of them generally fall within the 6 to 7 liters per 100 kilometers range, but are more complex in design, and the more powerful and modern ones have an SCR system. Despite the generally lower mileage of newer, facelifted models, failures of more components are more frequent. Therefore, it's impossible to definitively say that the pre-facelift or facelifted version is better or worse. In my opinion, when buying a diesel, you should primarily consider the car's condition and mileage, preferably under 200,000 kilometers, but choosing the engine based on power is also crucial. The 115 horsepower units are simply sluggish, although if you don't need high performance, the flexibility is sufficient. They offer 280 Newton-meters of torque. Not much, but it's the same as the less powerful 2.0 TSI. Acceleration to 100 kilometers per hour takes about 13 seconds. The 140 to 150 horsepower versions are perfectly adequate, while those with 170 horsepower and above offer good performance. Another thing to consider if you plan to keep the car with you for a long time is the emission standard, which is crucial for diesels. Euro 5 won't allow you to enter many city centers or entire cities now or in the future. Only 2 engines, rated at 150 and 177 horsepower, in cars manufactured from 2018 onward meet the highest Euro 6D temp standard. The 2018 model year 1.4 TSI petrol engine also became the last petrol engine in the range. Finally, on the subject of diesels, you should of course expect the typical faults of this type of engine, although in practice, the 2.0 TDI in this model is very reliable and durable. Furthermore, all parts are relatively inexpensive compared to other brands outside the VW group and readily available. TDIs consume less fuel than gasoline engines and are more popular, making them easier to purchase. That's why many people choose this option, and rightly so. Typical faults. The Sharan II is a car from a period when electronic control was an integral part of almost every component. However, for mechanics, this car presents no problem. It's technically sound. Most independent garages have access to the appropriate software, and wholesalers stock a plentiful supply of parts, including aftermarket replacements. There are no faulty engines after the facelift, and well-maintained diesel units easily last 500,000 kilometers. Cars imported from Germany are typically used for longer distances, so they aren't tired. The Sharan, especially before the facelift, is a model with a few minor flaws. The side door control mechanism breaks, usually due to neglect, the suspension creaks, dirt, the safety systems operate inconsistently, and the electrical system is not always stable. Occasionally, problems can stem from wiring harnesses damaged by martins. Drivers also experience problems with the touchscreens. Of the more serious issues, the biggest pain points are DSG gearbox and dual-mass flywheel failures. The need for repairs, major or minor, occurs after approximately 200,000 to 250,000 kilometers. The second major problem will be the pre-facelift 1.4 TSI engine. When it works properly, it's great, but it's also risky. The turbocharger and timing belt drive can fail, and oil consumption can be significant. With a car with this engine, you need to keep a close eye on the oil level. A similar situation occasionally occurs with the 2.0 TSI engine, but only at the beginning of production. It's generally assumed that this unit has no oil problems, but until 2013, users complained of a loss of 0.5 to 1.0 liters between oil changes. Diesel engines also experience faults, but firstly, after high mileage, usually around 300,000 kilometers, and secondly, if they are not properly repaired. Thirdly, compared to diesels from other manufacturers, TDIs are usually cheaper to repair due to the availability of parts and the familiarity of these engines among mechanics. It's worth noting that newer diesels have an SCR system, which requires AdBlue top-ups. Unfortunately, the filler neck is located in the trunk, making refilling the fluid cumbersome. It's worth remembering this before a long trip, as you'll need to unpack the trunk to top up. Operating costs. Several car components pose high-cost risks. The most serious and expensive is DSG gearbox failure, which is why regular oil changes are recommended, approximately 5 liters per change. If you're not looking to save money, you'll spend around 10,000 euros on gearbox repairs and clutch and dual-mass flywheel replacements. Just the clutch and dual-mass flywheel kit alone will cost around Euro 5,000 to 6,000, and that's not going to happen. Labor and additional repairs must be factored in, bringing the total to around Euro 8,000 to 10,000. Therefore, if you don't care that much about an automatic transmission, choose a manual transmission, which is durable and trouble-free. A clutch kit with a dual-mass flywheel will cost you around Euro 2,500 to 3,000. There are also accessory clutches with a single-mass flywheel available on the market. An additional component that may require a larger outlay is the DCC adaptive suspension. While durable, replacing just the shock absorbers costs around 5,000 euros. Add to that other repairs, and the bill can reach Euro 6,000 to 7,000 for a complete suspension repair. High costs are, of course, associated with diesels, but also with the failure of pre-facelift TSI models. In the latter case, it's often necessary to seek out a different engine. In each of these cases, a huge advantage of owning a Volkswagen is the ease of finding a repair shop, including a specialized one, and, if necessary, an authorized one. It's important to remember that any Skoda, Seat, or Audi service will also service your VW. Another advantage is the ease of getting accepted by an independent service center. While large garages are less likely to turn up their noses, smaller private garages are. No mechanic complains about Volkswagens. The standard tire size is typically 205/60 R16. This is a reasonable size and price, as mid-range tires will set you back around 400 euros each. However, the Sharan was fitted with rims up to 20 inches, with the largest size being 235/35 R20. In this case, expect tire prices to be around Euro 600 to 700 each.